All right, welcome everybody. This is the next iteration of the Catalyst Summer Workshop. We have two excellent presenters today from UC Berkeley, Darren Cook and Rhonda Schrader. They're going to walk you through some aspects of the life science startup world that we haven't touched yet. So it's quite an exciting time for us to be getting close to the end of your summer work internship and getting some more of the business practices. So first we have Darren Cook, who is the interim chief innovation officer and entrepreneurship officer at UC Berkeley. He recently took over this position for Rich Lyons, who was promoted to chancellor at UC Berkeley. Darren Cook is also the executive director of the Berkeley Life Science Entrepreneurship Center. He is a professional faculty member at the Haas School of Business and chair of the BioTrack at the Berkeley Skydeck Startup Accelerator. He teaches at the Haas School of Business for ICOR as well. And he is an investor and former chair of the Digital Health and Medical Device Tracks at Life Science Angels. He is an attorney. He led the IP legal team for the Life Science Tools group of Biorad Laboratories and was a life sciences patent litigator at Covington and Burling. Before law school, Darren was a mechanical engineer and he developed cochlear implants at UCSF. So really cool and exciting background. Darren, we are thrilled that you're here today. So I will turn the floor over to you.
All right. Thanks, Nate. Appreciate that. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so the plan is, as I understand the agenda, I have 30 minutes. I'm going to go over two different topics. One, classic investor pitch, tips and tricks for what that looks like. And then number two, okay, this does say intro to customer discovery. This is not best practices for customer discovery. This is more like teeing it up for Rhonda, who can then talk about, like, once I've inspired you that you should care about this topic, she'll tell you how to do it. Because I didn't talk about that part in this presentation. All right, so let me just jump in. Classic investor pitch. And I came up with these 10 slides after years ago. I found myself having to go to a conference. But Nate, you want to grab the mute on that? Found myself going to a conference where they said, "Oh, great, you have 5 spots to meet with startups, but 100 want to meet with you." Like, okay, that's crazy, right? 100? Like, and they want me to pick who are the 5 that I get to meet with. So I literally got 100 pitch decks where I sat down and read all of them in one sitting and picked the 5. And then I thought, what was it about the 5 that inspired me to, like, say, yeah, these are the 5 I want to meet? And I boiled it down to 10 different things. And so I came up with this. I put this together years ago. Classic investor pitch, what I want to see in an investor pitch. Now I see hundreds and hundreds of investor pitches every year, and it's still true. But this is more than just an investor pitch, right? So think about this as a pitch to anyone who you want to convince you're doing something interesting, including collaborators or future employees or your boss, or crucially also yourself, right? Like you're doing something worthwhile. Anyway, the 10 easy steps, the first 5 are the makers and breakers of the deal. If you get to the end of the first 5 and you haven't convinced the investor or the future employee or something that you're onto something, the rest doesn't matter. Number 1, there's a problem, right? And this seems obvious, right? Like I'm sure everyone in the call is like, obviously I would start with that because that's the way pitch decks start, right? No, they so often do not. They start with the team or the tech or their IP position or something. Frame it for us. If it's diabetes, remind us. Now we're talking about diabetes. And number 2, that diabetes is a huge problem, right? Whether you're describing it in terms of geographic scope or patients or dollars or whatever it is, even if we all know that is a big problem, remind us. So we want to see some scale and scope around this. Number 3, you solved it. Whatever your tech is, whether you just teed up this huge problem, you have some sort of solution that fixes it. Again, this seems really obvious, right? It does to me. And it's funny to think just how many teams and companies don't do it in this order, but they don't. Yeah, you fixed it. And this is where you put in proof. Keep in mind, we are your skeptical colleagues. Investors want to invest, right? We have to say no to 99 out of 100 companies, but we want to invest. So we want to believe, you just need to convince us. So this is where the data comes in. And number four, the data is exceptional, right? You're 10 times better than anyone has ever seen before. And why 10 times? And I don't mean 10 times just like throwing that around. I mean literally 10 times. It's because if the problem is as big as you say it is, everyone's going to be working on it, right? This is a huge deal. There's going to be current companies and R&D departments and other startups. Everyone's trying to fix the problem. And number five, solutions irresistible to somebody who's going to buy it from you at a profit. Right. This is the trickiest part. We're going to look at an example in the next section where this does not come together, and you'll see why. Trickiest part, irresistible to somebody who has money, right? What does this look like? Problem solution fit graph. What you or your startup or whoever you're working for controls is how great your solution is, right? How good is the tech? Hopefully it's exceptional. What you don't control is the customer's problem. And this is what I'm going to talk about, why you should care about customer discovery. Rhonda's going to talk about how to do customer discovery. This is what you're thinking about when you're trying to convince investors or convince anybody that, yeah, you know what, we're onto something huge, and our solution is exceptional in the way it fixes the huge problem. So back. Okay. Notice I didn't say anything about IP or team or other stuff. You think, well, that should be in a pitch deck, right? Yeah, it's coming. That's also in the pitch deck. The second five are really just value changers, right? They change what we think and how much value we investors put on the deal. Number six, the team, right? You have a team that can do this. You've been here before. You have a complementary skill set. Revenues are going to be amazing. IP gives you a competitive advantage. In the life sciences space, that's usually patents. In other spaces, it's maybe unique data sets or know-how or something. But you've got some secret sauce that only you have that is an unfair competitive advantage. FTO stands for freedom to operate, meaning you've looked at other people's IP and understand that you're outside of it. Your investment ask will take you someplace important. So we want to know, if we give you the money that you're asking for, what are you going to do with it? Hopefully, it's going to allow you to reach milestones that are interesting and intriguing, and make us interested to reinvest in the future or get the interest of other investors. And number 10, remember, investors are doing this to make money, right? So they want to know who else has made money in deals like this. So this is a place where you can put exits and comps and other stuff in the space. So to review, problem, huge problem, solution, exceptional solution, irresistible to somebody. You have a team, revenue is going to be great, IP is great. There's a pathway. Right. This is given that this was like said, hey, we want to do pitch decks. I've added in some bonus slides about now this is like kind of style and personalization. You can just put all the data in there and make it boring, but especially if you're doing some sort of demo day pitch, 5-minute pitch, something to really get people's attention, there's opportunities here to get a bit more attention to yourself. Number one, pictures, graphics, lots of pictures, lots of graphics grab somebody's attention more than just bullet points of text. Big fonts. Yes, indeed. UFO lands in Suffolk, and that's official. 30 point. Literally is 30 point. So you notice if you went smaller than this, like this is 30 point, it would be getting pretty small for people in the back of the room. Yeah, be yourself. Don't be afraid to give your personality an airing in a presentation like this. And even investors want to know that you're passionate about something and what your background is. This is your opportunity. Make it understandable. Right. I give this advice all the time to investors where they're going through and there's a bunch of tech and details and et cetera. No, pretend you're giving your pitch presentation to a group of high school students. I understand the people on the screen are younger than high school students, but smart high school students. And what does this look like? So this is one of the most remarkable demo day pitches. I'll pay a couple seconds of this. Notice Asha Gabi, the CEO of this company, Koniku, just has 7 minutes. This is a 7-minute demo day pitch. But think about the level of, like, first of all, the pace, which is unusual. And second, the way he explains things.
Good afternoon. My name is Agabi Osh. I'm the CEO of Koniku. the neurocomputational company. Each and every one of you in this room take paper for granted. 600 years ago, paper was a big deal because it meant for the first time we could store and transmit our information across vast oceans. 60 years ago, with the invention of the microprocessor, we exponentially multiplied that ability. Today, we can transmit gigabytes of information across time zones at an instant. But there's a massive problem afoot. The fundamental physics and Moore's law will not continue. What are we going to do? Luckily, inside each and every one of your heads.
All right, you get the idea. What? So, yes, problem, huge problem. He's just introducing the solution. But notice the level of detail was something that any high school student would understand. He's about to tell people that he's invented a computer that runs on human neurons, right, which is out there. And also, he's not in a hurry. Actually, I listened to this pitch because I think most people, I fall in the trap of saying, like, I have so much to convey. Maybe what I should do is just talk faster. No, just go back and listen to the pace of this pitch and realize how powerful it is. Okay, so anyway, with that. And then really, truly do it in 10 slides. I just gave you 10 model slides. Go back. If you have 20 slides, consolidate, cut them, weed out the ones that are not important. Truly go back and see what you could do with the 10 slides. And then if you have to add stuff from there, you can totally do that. So anyway, a couple specific points with respect to pitch decks. Huge problem. Number one, this is where you have the opportunity to introduce the status quo. Remember, everyone's biggest competition, every startup's biggest competition is the status quo. Nobody wants to do anything different than they're doing today. What are people doing today, even if it's terrible, right? Even if it's a lousy solution. And then second, so you introduce the status quo and the problem. Second, what are people doing now to fix it, right? Put the competition. This is counterintuitive to every startup I work with because they want to hide the competition, right? You don't want to acknowledge there's a whole bunch of people in this space. No, we investors want to know who else is working on this huge problem you just teed up and why is it lousy? Like, why are they not winning? Because we want to see a bunch of competition. Otherwise, it's probably not a huge problem. So let's see. Solutions irresistible to somebody who's going to buy it from you at a profit. Yeah, especially in the life sciences space. This is a new, you're going to talk about this in a second, the life sciences venture canvas. You need to know who are the 5 different parties, especially in a regulated and reimbursed industry. There's 5 people, and I say people on purpose, 5 people who have to be an enthusiastic yes for any life sciences innovation to be adopted. It looks like this. The patient is solving a problem now. The provider is solving a problem now. The payer is doing something, right? For whatever the problem is. Each of these people, you need to get them to do something different tomorrow than they're doing today. And why are they going to do that? For many of them, and this is what I want teams in my I-Core class to finally conclude, even though I don't tell them in the beginning, so I'm just giving you like a free pass on this. For the certain of them, the reason they're going to do something different tomorrow is because they're financially motivated. That's it. Counterintuitive to almost everybody in this space. That's the deal, right? We want you to know that that's the deal. And then second, how much money do they need to make before they're going to do something different? Right. All right. Revenue projections are going to be incredible. What I see most teams fall down on is that they just go to like Gartner report and say, yeah, diabetes is $3 trillion or something. And so that's a huge market. Right. No, we actually want to see a bottom-up market analysis, meaning that you've figured out how many people you can treat, how much you're going to get for each of them, and do simple math, which is shown on the slide. It's called a bottom-up serviceable, obtainable market. If you don't have it, we don't believe you. So yeah, we don't care about the big market report type of top line numbers. All right. So that was the first 15 minutes. Next 15 minutes, the intro to this concept of customer discovery. And once I get to the end, Rhonda's going to tell you how to actually do it. So first, We have a pop quiz. I don't have my chat here, but let me just tell you, instead of doing a pop quiz, I'm just going to say the answer to this, what percentage of startups don't make it, is generally regarded as being about 90%. And probably a lot of us have heard that number, right? Maybe it's 95%. Maybe it depends on what accelerator you're going through. Whatever it is, it's a lot. It's vast, vast majority of them, once they start up, don't make it. And it's difficult to get this number because it's actually hard to define like what's a startup and what's failure and what, that sort of thing. But what we do know the answer to is why. And this is easier because once you have a failed startup and it's indisputable, you can just go ask them what happened, right? And when you ask them what happened, what we consistently hear is that they're not failing for lack of product or the team didn't come together or whatever it is. It's that they actually don't have customers. This applies to life sciences, even in the regulated and reimbursed space as well. And so here you can see this played out. 101 startup postmortems, top 20 reasons startups fail. Number one, this is with interviews with the CEOs of the failed startups, and they're admitting, yeah, we built something that not enough people wanted, right? Our bad kind of thing, right? Yeah. And number two, ran out of cash. In most other industries that are not like regulated and reimbursed life sciences, where you can actually sell something, running out of cash means you're not selling something, which means not enough people want it. And also, investors are smart. They're not going to give you money to keep putting money into your company indefinitely. You run out of cash because you just run out of investment, right? And there's other reasons like the team and someone got there first and et cetera. But vast majority is you're building something that not enough people want. Let's look at some examples. Number one, subscription watch service, $140 a month. And this is in 2018, right? So inflation, folks. Yeah. Enough people are paying $140 a month for a different watch every month? No, they weren't, right? That came and went. Super sensitive smoke alarm turned up to 11. Internet connected because that's important. Anyone taking the smoke alarm off their ceiling so they can have one that is going to go off at every occasion? No, they're not, right? And the funny thing is the copy back in 2018 when this company was around and they went out of business, the ad copy on the website was very earnest. It's like in a house fire, every minute counts. I'm like, yep. If your house is literally on fire, every minute counts. We all agree, right? But it's so infrequent that your house is on fire and you're just going to get false alarms, right? Nobody bought this. So, and you're probably thinking, well, those are dumb. Like watch of the month and smoke alarms like life sciences is more important, right? What if there was a app that connected cancer patients with clinical trials? Like it's hard to believe that doesn't exist, right? But what if there was one? And this was like being built in the late 2018s era. Uh, and it garnered a ton of investment from the major investors. 90 million, 100. I heard actually they raised $100 million. And led by some super smart guy in the industry, right? Rhodes Scholarship, Harvard Medical School, faculty at a cancer center. The guy knows cancer patients and their needs and running trials and stuff, right? And he got $100 million to build this app to connect them with clinical trials and advertised the heck out of it, right? CNBC, other places, Canada's involved apparently. I mean, this is everywhere. You can predict what happened given the setup. Yeah, we ran out of money November 2018. High profile startup seeking to connect patients with clinical trials shuts down. Hold on a second. This was important, right? Here's the deal. The investors stopped investing. Yeah, there's a problem. They're not going to give it more capital because they weren't making any money. They had 30 unpaid partnerships, apparently, but nobody cared enough to actually pay them for it. And it went out of business after burning through $100 million. So, yep, ran out of money, 2018. How do you avoid all this? Well, this is a review, right? The review of what we just looked at. Problem, huge problem. Solutions irresistible to somebody who's going to buy it from you a profit. It's your goal to invest, to convince investors that you know the answers to this, and you can convince them that your answers are correct. How are you going to do it? Concept that now introducing called customer discovery. And if you're like me, back in 2017, when I first heard the term, like, I know exactly what that means because I know the two words, right? But you're probably wrong, right? In the parlance of what we're talking about here, customer is actually not just the person who buys something, and discovery isn't finding them. So this is not a biz dev exercise. Customer is anyone who can affect whether your solution is adopted, and discovery isn't just finding them, it's actually understanding them. So keep that in mind. Finding and understanding everyone who can affect whether your solution is adopted. And this is where the life sciences venture canvas comes back in. Your goal in a life sciences customer discovery project is to understand who are these 5 people, how are they solving the problem now, and what motivates them to say yes to change. And you do this by getting out of the building and talking to them. It's that simple, actually. That's the whole customer discovery process. When I run the 1-week iCore class for life sciences companies, this is all they do. They think about these 10 questions. So how do you find answers? Back in 2011, this whole concept was launched, the lean startup methodology. Steve Blank, who was a lecturer at Berkeley and Stanford, came up with this idea of a 100-interview model, talking to 100 people about their problems and needs and pain points before you built anything. I keep mentioning iCore because this is a program run by the National Science Foundation and the NIH and other government agencies that really is just Lean Startup. So they literally took over and used the curriculum from the Lean Startup program. So if you hear Lean Startup or iCore, it's the same thing. So tool set, we do 15 interviews a week in a program like this. We use the business model canvas or the life sciences venture canvas if you're in my class. You get out, you run experiments, you test hypotheses that are relevant to the business, and then you iterate based on who you talk to. What did you learn? Where were you right? Where were you wrong? How are you going to iterate your guesses about the 10 boxes that I just showed you to make them more correct? And what does this look like? If you retest and you repeat, it looks something like this, right?
Situation. Now I'm going to discuss how we would look for a new law. In general, we look for a new law by the following process. First, we guess it. Then we well, don't laugh, that's really true. Then we compute the consequences of the guess to see what, if this is right, if this law that we guessed is right, we see what it would imply, and then we compare those computation results to nature, or we say compare to experiment or experience. Compare it directly with observation to see if it works. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. In that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't make a difference how beautiful your guess is. It doesn't make a difference how smart you are who made the guess or what his name is. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it.
Yep, that's all there is to it, right? That's all we're doing here in a customer discovery project. It doesn't matter how smart you are about your tech or your theory, etc. It doesn't matter how much you think you know the market. If you get out of the building, you talk to people, and you fill out the 10 boxes on the Life Sciences Venture Canvas, if your business model doesn't agree with that, then it's wrong, right? All we're doing is applying the scientific method to business principles. So core tool set, hey, that's a picture from the class that Rhonda and I teach. You do the interviews outside of the class, you watch videos in class. In a classic customer discovery class, most of the class is the teams talking about like who they talked to, what did they learn, what were they surprised by, and get feedback from me, from the instructors, from the rest of the class. And you do workshops and that sort of thing. So back to this, not tech interviews. I just mentioned this. What does this mean? Not tech interviews. I mean, you go out and you're talking to people when you want to be like, hey, so I came up with this neat thing, right? What do you think? This is the number one hardest thing for inventors to understand, that this is not what the process is about. Because what happens? You go out there, you're a nice person, they're a nice person. You're like, I invented this neat thing. They're going to say, that's amazing, right? That I love it, right? Because that's human nature. No, but they don't actually care. They don't actually care about the tech. They really just care about their problems and needs. And your goal in a process like this is to figure out what those problems and needs are. They will love your tech every time. So They want the solution. Remember, this is what we already looked at. So your goal here is to be, when you're out of the building, you're talking to people, is just try to understand how big is the scope and scale of the customer's problem. And many times there's multiple customers, of course, depending on your industry. How big is the scope and scale of each of their problems? And is it big enough that you can incentivize them to do something different? If yes, you fall in the irresistible box. So, all right, to recap, not about finding customers. It's anyone who can influence whether your solution is adopted. Discovery means understanding them. So let's look at what this looks like in practice. When you've guessed at something relevant, you find people to talk to, you talk to them, you figure out where you're right and wrong. Let's look at a couple examples. One of the simplest one, this came out of my I-Corps class. A team with a multi-patient splitter for hospital ventilators. They did 17 interviews over the course of a week around the world. This is supposed to be used in developing countries, not for COVID, interestingly. This is for COPD, even though it was during the pandemic. And look at the interview results. Super simple. This is the basic way that we look at customer discovery results when you come back and you report who you talk to. Hypothesis. Hospitals in Africa and India use CPAPs to treat COPD. India, no. I can tell you, this team came back in and they're like, what? Like, we've been working on this for a year, assuming that this was the case. And just in a week, we discovered we were wrong. Like, man. Number 2, hospitals in Africa and India experienced ventilator shortages before the pandemic. India, no. Like, oh, forget it. Like, seriously, this team was like, this is, we're going to do something else. Right. But they had worked on this for some time. And then the thing that they discovered, of course, over the course of doing these interviews was there were other problems. It wasn't what they thought they were. It was that some places didn't have electricity, right? Or there was issue with suppliers getting bribed and all sorts of different things, or there was oxygen shortages and all sorts of things that were not what they thought was the problem. And this is the thing, if you're doing this right, you could discover, like, oh my gosh, there is a huge problem we didn't appreciate, and perhaps you could fix that. This team couldn't go and fix the electricity supply problem, but what if they could? Right? What if they said, oh my gosh, this is actually something we have a handle on. All right, let's look at another. This is the middle of the week. So this is 5 interviews in. Remember, we're doing 15 interviews a week. HAI detection. Here we go. Hypo, manually detected, combing through patient records. This is generally what they ask, like, how do you track them, etc. You find stuff that's interesting and surprising and like, great. Just 5 interviews in, learned a ton of information about their market, which frankly, they didn't really know. I mean, they're MPH students, right? All right. One of the best undergraduate teams I've ever had in my I-Corps class and knocked it out of the park. Stroke symptom detection, early stroke symptom detection with a video modality. Different way of thinking about it, but I've recently started making teams start their hypotheses with the I'll bet terminology. So everything has to start with I'll bet, because it makes you make a guess, right? I'll bet that companies that provide healthcare employees, okay, let's see this. I'll bet we need FDA approval. Okay, that's something they could probably figure out a different way, but you get the idea. I'll bet all these things are true. And what they figured out is like, you know what, we were kind of wrong on some of these things. And then based on what we just learned, we need to talk to other people about stuff like this. This team just won the grand prize in the Big Ideas contest, which is that UC-wide startup competition. So they did a great job. All right, with that, I think I landed the plane right at the half an hour mark. And I'm going to hand it over. Now that you are inspired, hopefully, that this is actually worth your time to do this customer discovery process, Rhonda's going to tell you, how are you going to find these interviews and conduct the interviews?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Darren. And are there any questions for Darren? If not, maybe we can move to Rhonda and then have questions for both of them. So Rhonda Schrader is Executive Director of the Berkeley Haas Entrepreneurship Program, and also for the Bay Area, a node of the NSF I-Corps. and she has founded or been an early stage team member in startups in biotech, nonprofit, retail, behavioral health, and now in AI. And she got her undergrad at Harvard and herself did an MBA from us. And with Darren Cook laying the foundation, Rhonda, take it over.
Hello, thanks so much for having me. So can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Just want to make sure. All right. So Darren talked about customer discovery a little bit. The point is there are no facts inside the building. This is one of my favorite sayings that Steve Blank has, and it's totally true. We have lots of opinions in our head, and we may have a lot of knowledge and experience, but the facts are with our customers. That's why we have to get out and discover them. Big companies and little companies make the mistake of not doing this. So these are two mini cautionary tales. This happens to be someone on the Berkeley campus, super smart guy, developed something to prevent and treat hospital-acquired infections. So when you think about it, huge market, big shark bite problem. And he spent 6 years and all of his family's savings developing this product. It worked. It was a great product. 3 successful clinical studies and 2 patents. However, the company went out of business pretty quickly after he launched. Why? Because he never went out and actually talked to anyone at a hospital. And when he did, he found out that, yeah, hospital-acquired infections are a problem, but there are like 9 other problems that administrators needed to solve. So they hadn't allocated any budget for it. No one had the money to pay for his product. All right, so big companies, little companies make that, small companies and large companies make that mistake as well. Anybody have a guess what this is? Just put it in the chat. Let's see. Yeah, Loon. Yeah, nice. Good one. So it is it's Loon. It's the Google product. It was a balloon that would deliver Wi-Fi access to remote areas or places that didn't have well-developed infrastructure. So Google spent 9 years, $125 million, put all their biggest people on it, and then it ran out of business, just like the other company, a couple months after it launched. Why? Think you can probably guess by now. Nobody wanted to pay for it. Governments thought that private industry should pay for it. Private industry also thought that government should pay for it. Nobody could agree. And Google, in that 9 years and $125 million, had never gone out to actually talk to customers. So you can read more about that. How can you avoid the heartbreak? I just want to show a quick video, one of my favorite all-time I-Core teams. They did the national program Darren talked about with 100 customer discovery interviews over 7 weeks. Jenny Jancy did that program as well. These were undergrads who had discovered something interesting in the lab, weren't quite sure if they could make a go of it in the marketplace. Here's a quick 2-minute video.
Hi, I'm Pavli Edovich, and I'm the entrepreneurial lead for Team 1050.
Hi, I'm Hannah Myers, and I'm the co-entrepreneurial lead for Team 1050.
Hi, I'm Chase Armour, and I'm the technical lead for Team 1050.
Hi, my name is Sergey Markovich, and I'm the industry mentor for Team 1050.
We started off this journey thinking that pharmaceutical companies would pay us to rapidly deliver microbes that could produce drugs. The first morning in New York, however, we had our first big realization. Companies aren't customers.
We realized our true customers were pharmaceutical chemists at these companies. So we got out of the building, strolled the streets of Newark, and talked to our customers firsthand.
But before we had even left the East Coast, we came to the hard realization that nobody wanted microbes. They were difficult to work with, hard to purify, and our customers were chemists, not biologists.
So that wasn't fun. In fact, with the sleep deprivation from the jet lag and the red eye, we were feeling pretty bummed. But right before we left for Newark, we had a meeting that changed it all.
It was another humid afternoon in New Jersey when we met with Anna, a scientist in the biocatalysis group at Merck. She was the one to open up an entire new segment, thirsty for solutions and entrenched with pain points that actually our technology could address. It was clear for the team that it's time for pivot.
Having just gotten our second win, we hopped over to Boston, excited to explore our new pivot in one of the two capitals of biotech.
We used the business model canvas to outlay all of our hypotheses about our new customer segment and used the insights from our customer interviews to answer them one by one. The teaching team provided critical feedback on our discoveries and forced us to use data to drive our business model and not our gut feelings.
After flying back to the West Coast, our interviews took us all around the Bay Area, from the skyscrapers of San Francisco to the waterfronts of the peninsula, and even to the largest campus in the entire pharmaceutical industry. It was here we spoke with Richard Yu, head of process chemistry at Gilead, where we learned how important short timelines are in using technologies such as ours. We also spoke with Francis Gauselin, head of process chemistry at Genentech, who elucidated major pain points with current pricing models.
In conclusion, our iCore journey has been a roller coaster ride of emotions and events, and probably the most rewarding and exciting part of our startup journey thus far. With heavily validated pain points and early evangelists at both Gilead and Genentech, who we will work with towards our eventual pilot, we are excited to say Team 1050 is a go.
Thank you.
All right, so this team started out undergrads. They didn't have LinkedIn network. They didn't even have a product. What they had was curiosity and an ability to listen and ask really great questions. And what they discovered was something very different than what they started out to discover, but it led to 2 letters of intent from Gilead and Genentech.
Hi.
They were able to raise $15 million before they even graduated to conduct the proof of concept study. It worked. They raised even more after that, about $35 million after that. And then they've now raised a total of $101 million. All because they got out of the building and did customer discovery. So I hope I've convinced you that it's important. Let's talk about some best practices, how you actually do it. Circling back to Darren's point, customer discovery isn't about finding people to sell to. It's about finding those people who can influence whether or not your solution is adopted, and then asking questions to understand them. We typically ask for 15 interviews a week. Why so many? Because data-driven results. An N of 1 doesn't tell you very much. An N of 15, if you're doing it in a very focused way, it will start to give you a signal and a pattern. And that's ultimately what customer discovery is about. We're trying to test our hypotheses and get signal versus noise. So that's why when Hannah said companies aren't customers, she's 100% correct. When we do customer discovery, we need to have that level of specificity. We need to have a job title for a person, because a customer is not a biotech company or the biotech industry. A customer is not Genentech or Gilead. It's a process chemist at Genentech. That's the level of specificity we want to get to. And this is just a quick thought exercise that we'll go through quickly. When you have an N of 1, you can't really see much of a pattern. N of 10, you may start to see something. N of 20, maybe something else comes more into focus. Does anybody see anything? Oops, my computer's hanging up. Sorry about that. Does anybody see any sort of image here at N30? Just put it in the chat. Are you starting to see anything? Dog. All right. Yes, you must be obviously a dog person. Yes, there is a Dalmatian in the center with its little head down, drinking from a puddle of water. Some people see it right away. Some people don't ever see it. But the point is, the more data, the clearer the focus is in customer discovery. All right, so there are 4 stages to customer discovery. We're going to talk mostly about getting and then listening. For getting, how do you actually find these specific people to talk to? Well, LinkedIn is your friend, especially as of a year ago, because they added in all these nifty features where you can stack request in the search box. You can request to find folks who are UCSF alums, UCSF pharmacy school alums. So can just get very, very specific about the types of people you want to talk to. And that is a new feature. So if you're not using it, just play around with it, and it's going to be very helpful. School plus company plus, often you can get down to the level of job title, which is super helpful. Another great hack that our students use to great effect is advertisements for conferences, either in the future or in the past. Most of these, if you just Google the topic you're interested in and conference, you're going to pop up a number of sites just like this. They're going to have pictures of folks with their company and their job title. And if these folks are smart enough to be speaking at a conference, then they're probably going to be able to be very helpful to you. So you can find them through either old or future conference adverts, and then look for them on LinkedIn, or try to send them an email, which we'll get to in just a second. However, asking for a warm introduction, especially at the beginning when you're trying to get those first 10, is always the way to go. So exhaust your list of friends, family, and even frenemies if it will get you an interview, but make it easy for your requester. This is one of our top entrepreneurs from Haas, who started a company called 28 Health. She asked me for an introduction at least once a week, but she makes it so easy, I don't run out of the room screaming from her emails. I know it's going to take me 30 seconds max to be able to respond. So a couple things she does that I love. She puts in the purpose. She puts in hyperlinks to the LinkedIn profiles because she's done her homework. She sees that I'm connected, but she puts that hyperlink in so I can easily look them up to see, do I really know this person, or did I just say yes to their LinkedIn invitation? And then if I do, she has a blurb at the bottom. So literally I can, if I know these people, I can just send this on 30 seconds, I'm done. Please make it easy for your warm intros. So if you need to find someone's email address, and you know the company, you know their name, but you don't know their email, here's a whole list of services that will do that. Most of them are free. For example, if you're doing the conference hack and you find 5 people you'd like to talk to, but they're not on LinkedIn, try using one of these to generate their email and see what happens. Here's another handy tool that our teams are starting to use more and more. This clay.com was designed to generate sales leads, but customer discovery is often about finding the right person to talk to, exactly the same as you would do if you were going to make a sales pitch. So use the free trial for these lead generators like clay.com, and it can be very helpful to you in terms of generating a specific type of person to talk to. And they usually have emails and LinkedIn links as well. And if all else fails, ask ChatGPT. We had a team in our launch accelerator that really needed to talk to folks who live in care homes. It's not like they can just roll up to the door and knock on the door. So they just asked ChatGPT, where do the elderly hang out? in real life and online. They quickly got back a list of about 15 forums, groups, and other online spaces, and they were able to get their interviews for the week. All right. Always introduce yourself using your natural appeal. You're a UCSF alum, you're a Berkeley alum, do whatever it takes. You're a student. That's always a great card to play. And then put a little butter on your tongue to flatter them in asking for them to spend 15 minutes of time with you for their expertise. I've never seen an interview only go 15 minutes. If you were truly asking questions about their needs and their problems, sometimes it's difficult to make them be quiet. However, here's one other pro tip. If all else fails, just show up. Do you remember the undergraduate team at Ether Bio Machines? They didn't know anybody from Genentech, but they had really cool UC Santa Cruz hoodies, go Slugs. Then they had their clipboards. They just showed up in the Genentech parking lot and started asking people when they went to their cars if they could talk to them for a few minutes. That all led to that first letter of intent that led to that first $15 million. So never be afraid to just show up, hang out, go where people are after work. Here are a number of other things. Open, we're going to skip because you guys are adults, you know what you're doing. However, I do want to caution, don't talk about your technology. You're there to discover your customers' needs. So be prepared to tell your customers that, or to tell your interviewee that you'd love to tell them about it at the end of the interview. It rarely comes up, but you're there to focus on their needs. All right, and then listen. You want to ask open-ended questions. For example, if I ask you, are you a healthy eater? And you say yes or no, that is a pretty short conversation. If I ask you what you ate for yesterday, that's going to be a richer conversation. Ask you that, and then what did you eat the day before? Then it becomes much more of a learning opportunity. Don't sell, because you're there to discover their needs and problems. And remember, so something we have to tell our teams all the time, they don't care about your technology, they care about their problems and their needs. If your technology doesn't address one of their problems and their needs, meh, they're not going to be so interested. All right, I know we're running out of time. I really want to get to this part, the open-ended questions. Anything that is not a yes or no, super easy. How, when, can you explain, tell me about, help me understand, and the very best one, why? After every single answer, if you ask why as a follow-up, it invites your interviewee to tell you more. And here's another tactic that I really like. Genuine curiosity. During customer discovery, you are always going to be surprised by something. You better have response. You can just rephrase what they've said that surprised you in the form of a question. Highly encourage you to try this with your friends when you're out for drinks next. It's pretty cool because if you rephrase it as a question, that invites them to tell you more. And you get away with secretly being surprised inside and very non-judgmental. All right. I do want to give some time for questions to Darren and me. So I'm just going to close out with this. The number one thing to avoid in customer discovery is confirmation bias. Don't be this guy.
What do you think the chances are of a guy like you and a girl like me ending up together? Well, Lloyd, that's difficult to say, and you really don't hit me with it. Just give it to me straight. I came a long way just to see you, Mary. Just least you can do is level with me. What are my chances? Not good. Not good, like 1 out of 100? I'd say more like 1 out of 1,000,000. So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
All right. So if you get 99 no's, no, not interested, not a problem, don't get excited when you hear the one. All right. Thanks, everybody. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rhonda. Thanks a lot, Darren. And yeah, we'll go to the questions. Let's see. Maybe,
Yeah, I'm not
Nate, are
seeing
you
anything in.
seeing any questions?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in chat right now, but so as folks are adding their questions, feel free to do that in chat, raise your hand. And while you're thinking of those, one question that I have that I often think of is, obviously I'm drinking the Kool-Aid when it comes to customer discovery, and I think it's so important. And my friends who are starting companies outside of universities, I said, make sure you do customer discovery. So I'm wondering, like, a couple things, like, why do you think people do not do customer discovery? Is it an ego thing? Is it they think they know better than anybody else? And what does one do when, after doing customer discovery, their hypothesis is proven incorrect?
Ooh. I can take that one since I've got the mic, but I think it's all of the above. And it's just hard. It's more work to actually go out and do these things versus just to kind of feel like, oh, yeah, I know everything. And if your hypothesis is proven incorrect, you either have to look for a segment that has the problem you can solve, or you need to go solve a different problem if you don't want to change your technology. So, yeah.
Another question, I don't want to monopolize this, so again, everybody feel free to raise hands. Darren, you talked about, we talk about TAM, SAM, SOM all the time and figuring out that market. And, the example that you provided of there are, millions of people with diabetes, and how that's, an antiquated way of doing it versus doing it from the bottom up with simple math. Could you maybe perhaps elaborate on that? Give an example of how you would do that kind of simple math?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's a good question, and happy to say more about it. Classically, what we see when we have a startup pitch, I think of it as like, say somebody has invented a new rear view mirror for a car, and they come out with, hey, the total market for the automotive industry is like some $1 trillion. Well, that doesn't make much sense, right? Because you're just building this rearview mirror. It's just part of it. How about, so it's a useless number, really. It's not hard to say, like, you know what? We figured out our mirror is going to be $20, and probably we're going to get this many uh, companies that adopt it, and there's this many opportunities, and this is a reasonable estimate. And it's truly just simple math at the bottom of the page where you can say, and guess what? Even with reasonable estimates, it's $1 billion industry because everyone needs rear view mirrors. That's what we as investors want to see. So I don't know if that example helps.
Yeah, so would that be saying, all right, there are, I don't know, 10 major car companies, and we think that we realistically could get two of those 10 major companies. And of those two companies, we think that they sell this number of cars and it would be applicable to this number. Is that what you're thinking of when you say this kind of simple math?
Yep, exactly. And we don't expect them to be right. We understand these are guesses, and they're going to be wild guesses in some respects. But what we're hoping for is that when you lay out the assumptions, that you're like, yeah, those are reasonable wild guesses. And so actually, once you add them all up, that actually is a big market, even though it's wrong, right? It's going to be wrong because you're guessing at a lot of stuff. But what we're not looking for is just like a $50 million total market. That's not going to be enough to get any investors' interest. We're looking for something big and the assumptions behind it to justify it.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate it. We walk through the TAM SEMs all the time, and hearing that I think is very helpful for folks. All right, I see
Okay,
Vincent again has
Vincent,
a question, and then we'll try and end pretty soon. So Vincent, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for the last minute question. It was a really interesting presentations. What I was most interested was that I forgot I had a cool name. That one slide with the patient, provider, payer, partner, permitter, along with the solve now and well, basically, I guess my curiosity, I know they're all important, but is there a general prioritization in customer discovery? Like you want to try to start with the patient or maybe focus on the partner? I understand that some of these people focus more on financials, which might be a difficulty, but if you could give me some general answer to that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. So they're all important. Right. Yeah. If any one of them is a no for adoption of the solution, it's not going to work. So I just put a Medium article in chat, which goes through all that when I launched this life sciences venture canvas, which explains in a bit more detail each of the boxes. So you're welcome to go through that.
Okay,
But the
that's perfect.
short answer is yeah. Most teams do want to start with the patient first, just because typically that's easiest. And it's also helpful to know, like, what's the current patient experience? Almost always the patient, with the teams quickly realize is not the decider of anything. But you still want to know what they're doing today. What are their pain points? What do they want? Because they do fit in the workflow somewhere.
hmm
So,
Okay, I'll check out the article. Thank you so much.
yep.
All right, great. I think
I have one last question. Can I ask?
Sure, Jenny, last question.
Darren, I thank you so much for these presentations. They're awesome. Clearly this 10 slides is so important to get across your idea and the business opportunity and, in 5 minutes, and that's great. Is there a space that an entrepreneur should have a larger extended version prepared for an investor who might be more interested in dive deeper?
Yeah.
And if there are resources out there that you know of that I should be, looking into?
So I would follow the same format. You just go more detail in the data mostly.
Okay.
More detail in the data in the market. So I think the 10 slides and that format holds, whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes. Typically, 20 minutes is as long as you're going to pitch, right? I mean, if you go to an investment committee with a VC, they're going to ask you for a 20-minute pitch.
Hmm.
You still do it in that order, right? You're just going to have more detail as you go. And also, of course, I think maybe people are surprised to learn that when you have a VC pitch, they cut you off constantly, right? So you don't need that many slides. You're going to get to the slide 3 and someone will be like, wait, let me ask you about something on that slide. And it's going to take you a while to get through everything anyway.
Yeah, no, great. That makes sense. I completely agree with that. I was just wondering if there's any more detailed information that they would expect you to have beyond this stuff. But it sounds like the story is very similar.
Yeah. The one thing that I consistently see that's lacking in pitches is the data. I don't know. People assume that investors don't know or don't care or something. No, we want to see it. We actually want to lean in and look at the graphs and understand, wait, do they have something? But so often teams will say oh, really? You wanted to see that? We have another deck with that. Yeah, you should have put that in there.
Okay,
right?
Great. Thanks.
All right, excellent. I think we're going to have to wrap up now just based off the timing. Darren, this was stellar. Rhonda, thank you very much. I know you had to drop off. These were phenomenal presentations, and we'll get your slides and we'll get this recording out to everybody. So everyone, thank you very much. Darren, specifically, thanks to you. Thanks to Rhonda and to all the interns and Catalyst PIs. Next step are your presentations. So please start working on those presentations. You got some really good insight from Darren on how to create those presentations. So please keep all that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Darren.
Thanks, all.
Darren. Thank you,
Yep.
Rhonda, and
You're welcome.
everyone. And just for the interns, just to clarify, Your presentations will be sometime between August 15th and August 10th.
Right. Thanks all.
Bye.
All right. See you.